problems that we have are 100%. You've heard me say this part before. I'm not going to spend any time at all on theory, but for those of you who haven't heard it before or forgotten, I'll just make these assertions and keep them in your mind. The problems that we're facing are 100% totally caused by the US government. They're not caused by bankers, they're not caused by brokers, they're not caused by the real estate industry. It all goes back to government at the root. So we have to ask ourselves, well, what is government? Government is a monopoly of force within a certain geographical area. That's what it is, a monopoly of force. It's not we the people or anything like that. That's not a definition of government. It's an organization that has a monopoly of force within a certain area. Now, what's the purpose of government? And people must think that the government's a cornucopia. It's supposed to do everything. It's a magical entity of some type. But in point of fact, government is pure coercion. It's an organization that has a monopoly of force. It's two kinds of people that like force and don't like force, okay? Now, I think that decent human beings want to minimize force. Therefore, you want to minimize pure force, which is the government. Now, what does that mean? Well, it should have enough force to protect you from force. All right, I can live with that. What does that mean? It means defenses against aggressors outside of its borders, police to protect you from aggressors inside its borders, and a court system to allow you to adjudicate disputes without resorting to force. If the government did that, I'd be fine. You wouldn't be hearing me giving this speech. But that's not the way it is. And I want you to make a distinction in your mind, which people get very confused, and it's between the government and society. They're two totally different things. They're actually antithetical to each other. And I see the government as being a dead hand on top of society, not as a representative of society or a friend of society in any way. Everything that people think the government does is really done by society or with assets that are taken by society, things that society would do for itself. Well, two definitions of a depression: period of time when most people's standard of living drops significantly. It's the best broad definition. And also, it's a period of time when distortions and misallocations of capital in the marketplace are liquidated. And we're going to see a lot of that in the future. Now, what happens to people during a depression? Well, let's divide people into three classes: rich, poor, and middle class. Rich people, look, in a depression, as Richard Russell has said, everybody loses. The winner is the person that loses the least. But the rich are going to be okay. They can bribe the politicians to change the laws. They can hire the lawyers to interpret the laws, the accountants to limit their liabilities, the investment advice so they profit from the distortions. Don't worry about the rich. They'll get eaten later, but for the moment, don't worry about them. How about the poor? The poor don't have anything anyway, and the government is going to keep throwing benefits at them, which is a shame because it cements them as poor people, but they'll be okay. The problem is the middle class, and the problem is that the United States is a middle class society, and the middle class is what's going to get hammered. Why is that? It's because middle class people are people that try to look out for themselves, try to produce more than they consume, and save the difference. And that's how you grow in wealth. What's wrong with that? Well, here's the problem. It's that almost everybody in the middle class saves in terms of dollars. They produce more than they consume, save the difference. Wonderful, looking out for themselves. That's why the world gets better. But they save in dollars. But what happens if the dollars are destroyed? It means that everything they saved disappears, okay? That's why this is a real problem.